In this video, we're working in lesson 2.5, comparing and ordering fractions, decimals, and percents. We are on page 133 and 134 today. In numbers 1 through 4, fill in each circle with a greater than sign, less than sign, or equal to sign to make a true statement. So number 1, we have 1/3 is what than 3/5. So we could find a common denominator, or another strategy that we learned in elementary school is to compare benchmark fractions. So to compare benchmark fractions, I look at these and I see that the 1/3 is a number that's less than half. So if you can visualize 1/3, okay, it would look like that, but nicer, filled in a little better. And then that's less than half. 3/5 I know is more than half because 5 is my whole. Half of that would be 2.5. Half of 5 is 2.5. So if I have 3 out of 5 or 3/5, that's more than half. So I know that this number is less than half. This number is more than half. So I don't even have to do the long division or find a common denominator. I can just compare them to that benchmark fraction 1/2. And I know that 1/3 is less than 1/2 and 3/5 is more than 1/2. So I know that 1/3 is less than 3/5. And if you want to think of the alligator, that's fine. The alligator wants the bigger number, so the alligator would want the 3/5. Okay, and we can use the alligator strategy to help us to understand which one is larger. But when we read it, we always want to use the correct vocabulary, and that would be 1/3 is less than 3/5. Okay. Number 2, we can also use our benchmark fraction. So 6/12 would be exactly half. So 7/12 would be more than half. And then obviously this number is 1/2. So 7/12 is more than 1/2. So 7/12 is greater than 1/2. Number 3. 1/4 is what than 0.4. So I am going to change these to a common denominator. 1/4 is what than 4/10. So 1/4 is fine as a fraction already. This is 4/10. 4/10. Okay, I can't scale, they don't, if I have my 1/4 here, I want to get a common denominator. The least common multiple of 4 and 10 would be 20. They both go into 20. So I can make a common denominator of 20 and then compare them. To get from 10 to 20, I multiplied by 2. So whatever I did to my denominator times 2, I have to do to my numerator times 2, and that will give me 8. And then 4 times 5 gets me to 20. So whatever I did to my denominator times 5, I also need to do to my numerator times 5. So 5/20 is less than 8/20. So therefore 1/4 is less than 4/10. Okay, alternatively, you could change them both to decimals. That's a great strategy also. So 1/4, and we know from money that 1/4 is the same as 1/4, and 1/4 would be 25 cents. So if you change that, here's another way you could do it. This would be 0.25 is what than 0.4, 25 cents and 40 cents. So obviously 25 cents is smaller. So we would have, let me zoom in on that a little bit. 25 hundredths is less than 4/10. So just, you could compare those by changing them both to fractions with a common denominator, or you could change them both to decimals and compare that way. Either strategy is great. So here, number 4, we have 7/10 is what than 7/9. Now I'm going to use a little bit of a different strategy here. I'm going to use a common numerator. Okay, and you might have learned this in elementary school. You might not have learned this in elementary school, but I'll teach you the concept right now with just to show you an example. So this number is 7/10. I noticed that that's a 7. I can compare numbers with common denominators, but I can also compare numbers with common numerators. Okay, it's not always a go-to strategy, but it works when we happen to have the same numerator. It's pretty convenient. So 7/10 is what than 7/9. So if you can ignore the 7s for a minute and just look at 10ths and 9ths. If you have a pizza and you're very hungry and you want to have bigger pieces, or if you just want to have larger pieces for any reason, and if you divide the pizza into 10 slices, the slices are going to be a little bit smaller than if you divide the pizza into 9 slices, right? So if you have the same size pizza, if you're dividing it into 10 slices, the slices are going to be slightly smaller. If you're dividing it into 9 slices, the slices are going to be slightly bigger. So 7 of the slices that are ninths will be larger than 7 of the slices that are tenths, okay, because ninths are bigger than tenths. So we can use a common numerator to compare those. If you're not comfortable with using that strategy, you can get a common denominator, okay? Or you can change these both into decimals. We already did the common denominator strategy first here. So let's go ahead and change these both to decimals. The first number is already a decimal. So here's another strategy, okay? I'm going to change the 7/9 into a decimal. So this means 7 divided by 9, 7 divided by 9. 9 is too big to go into 7. So above the 7, I write a 0. I put a decimal, which I bring straight up, and then I annex a 0. 9 can go into 70 7 times. 9 times 7 is 63. 70 minus 63 is 7. I'm going to extend my division bar, annex another 0, and bring it down. 9 goes into 70 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. And we notice that we are going to get a repeating decimal, right? So this answer is going to be 0.7 repeating. So if I compare these as decimals, it will be 0.7 is what then 0.7 repeating. So if you think of these as if they're money, this is 70 cents. This is 77.77777 cents, okay? So what is bigger, 70 cents or 77 cents? Repeating, 77 cents would be bigger. So we can compare them with a common numerator. You could find a common denominator. You can change them both to decimals. You can use whatever your favorite strategy is. Okay, moving on to number 5. In numbers 5 and 6, we are going to order the fractions from least to greatest. So let's use the strategy of a common denominator. And the greatest or the least common multiple of 3, 2, 3, 4, and 6 is going to be 12. So I can change these all into 12. All right, so I'm just going to do that right below. I'm going to write small. 1/2 is the same as 6/12. 2/3 is the same as, so to get from 3 to 12, I multiply by 4. So I need to multiply my numerator by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. So that's 8/12. Okay, 1/4 is the same, and the comma actually should be up here with fractions. That's just how we do it. And then, so 1/4 is the same as 3/12. Okay, to get from 6 to 12, we multiplied by 2. So to get from 5 to our numerator, we multiplied by 2 as well, and we get 10. Okay, so then we'll put them in order, and this was least to greatest. So the smallest one was the 3/12, which corresponds with 1/4. So 1/4 is the least of those fractions. Okay, the next smallest one, we have 6, 8, and 10. The next smallest one is the 6/12. But remember, 6/12 was not the problem or the number that they gave us. We were given the number 1/2. So 1/2 is the next smallest. Okay, and then which one is smaller, 8/12 or 10/12? 8/12 is smaller. 8/12 corresponds with 2/3, and the largest one is 10/12, and 10/12 corresponds with 5/6. So from least to greatest, it's 1/4, 1/2, 2/3, 5/6. And we found a common denominator in order to be able to easily compare them. Moving on to number 6, also least to greatest. We have 2/3, 2/9, 5/6, and 11/18. So we can get a common denominator of 18 with these. They all go into 18. Okay, so we'll start with the 2/3. I'm going to write small here. Okay, so to get a denominator of 18, I had to take my 3 and multiply it by 6. So I do that to my numerator as well. 2 times 6 would give me 12, comma. Moving on to the 2/9. 9 times 2 gives me 18. So my numerator doubled, gives me 4. 5/6. If I want to change that to 18s, I'm multiplying by 3, about 15/18 here. And the last one was already written with a denominator of 18, so 11/18. So now I want to write these from smallest to largest. Zoom in a little bit better, okay? And then are looking at our numerators. The smallest one is 4/18, which corresponds with 2/9. So 2/9 was our smallest, 2/9, comma. And then we have 12, 15, and 11. So 11 is the next smallest, which is, it didn't change. It was still 11/18. Then we have 12/18, which corresponds with 2/3. And the largest was 15/18, which corresponds with 5/6. Okay, so smallest to largest, 2/9, 11/18, 2/3, and 5/6. Number 7, the word problem, real world application. I'm going to zoom back out. Okay. Darius spends, okay, there we are. Darius spends 35% of his time doing math homework. Alex spends 2/5 of his time doing math homework. Who spends more time on more homework time on math? So of their homework time, 35% of his homework time, I believe is what they're saying, not 35% of his life, but 35% of his homework time doing math homework. So 35%, I'm going to change that to a decimal. And the reason I am going to do that is because I see 2/5, which I know I can easily change into 4/10. So I can make that a decimal pretty easily as well. So 35% as a decimal is 0.35, and that's Darius. Okay, and then actually we could change them to percentages too. Whatever strategy, whichever method you want is fine. And then Alex spends 2/5. Well, I know 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10, and I can write 4/10 as 0.4. And that's Alex. And so they're asking who spent more time on math homework. So this is 35% or 0 and 35/100ths of his time for Darius, 4/10 or 40/100ths for Alex. So Alex spends more time, and I'm going to write those as percentages. Actually, I think that is on second thought. Okay, it's easier to talk about them as a percentage. So Alex spends more of his homework time on math. I'm going to abbreviate that HW. Alex spends more of his homework time on math. He spends 40% of his homework time, and you could abbreviate this all. On math, and Darius spends 35%. Number 8, 3 snack bars contain 1/5, 22/100ths, and 19% of their calories from fat. Which snack bar contains the least amount of calories from fat? So I'm just going to convert these all to percentages. 1/5, if I scale that up to 100ths, which is a percent, that's 20/100ths. So this one is 20%. 22/100ths written as a percent is 22%, and that third one is already written as a percentage, 19%. So which snack bar contains the least amount of calories from fat? So we had 19%, 20%, and 22%. So the 19% snack bar contains the least amount of calories from fat. Okay, moving on to number 9. Use the graphic novel frame below for exercises A and B. So ring toss scores. Daniela is making 1/5 of the shots, or her shots. Dwayne is making 25% of his shots. Angel is making 4 out of 20% of the shots. So how can I compare these scores? So A tells us to write each score as a decimal. They're telling us which strategy to use. No problem. So if I write them each as a decimal, so 1/5 is the same as 2/10, which is 0.2. I'll write it here, actually. I was going to make another column, but it's a little too narrow. So 0.2, and we can do that in our head because we know 1/5 is the same as 2/10, which as a decimal is 0.2. So we should be able to do that in our head by now. 25%, to write a percent as a decimal, we drop the percent sign and move our decimal 2 places to the left. So 0.25. Okay, then we have 4/20. 4/20 is the same as 2/10, which is 0.2. So 0.2, so 2/10. So we wrote each score as a decimal. We did that in the chart. So we can just draw an arrow there to refer to the chart. Compare the 3 scores. So Daniela and Angel each made 2/10 of their shots. So so that's 20% of their shots. So Daniela and Angel both each made 20% of their shots. So they're tied. Dwayne made 25% of his shots. Okay, so Dwayne, so this means that Dwayne was a better ring tosser, at least in that round. Okay, and so that is page 133. Let's do a few more problems on page 134, maybe even finish it if we can. So moving on to page 134. Complete the graphic organizer, write the original numbers to complete the statement. So steps to write the number as a decimal with 3 places. So 3/8, if I want to write that as a decimal to 3 decimal places, all I need to do is to divide the numerator by the denominator. Divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, and they already did that for us, 0.375. So we don't even have to do the long division. They were helping us out with this problem. Okay, the second row, 0 and 3/10. So this number is a decimal. So if we wanted to make it have 3 decimals, it's exactly 0 and 3/10. So it's 3/10. So we would just annex 2 zeros. And that would be 0.300. Okay, the third row, we would move the decimal 2 places to the left. So move our decimal 2 places to the left. So move the decimal point 2 places to the left and remove the percent symbol. Okay, and these are underneath us. They want us to compare these. So this is the less than sign. So we want to go from the least to the greatest. So this is less than this is less than that. So now they all have 3 decimal places. It's a little bit easier to compare them. So this would be the smallest number, 0.300 is the smallest, 0.375 and 0.387. Number 11, order the portion of responses listed in the table from least to greatest. Okay, so we want to be able to compare these, each of these, oops, I'm off the screen, I'm sorry. We want to be able to compare each of these from least to greatest. 17%, so 8%, 11. I would say changing them all to percentages would be easy. We already have 2 of them as percentages, and these 2 are pretty straightforward to change to percentages. So I'm going to zoom in on the table for a moment. That's already percent, that's already percent. So 11/20, if I want to make that into a percent, I just remember percent means per 100. So 20 times 5 would give me 100. 11 times 5 would give me 55. So as a percent, 55 hundredths is 55%. So this number is 55%. And then I have 2/10 right here. So if I want to change this to a percent, I know that 2/10, and you can probably do this in your head by now, but I'm just writing out each step. 2/10 is the same as multiply by 10 to get hundredths. So this is 20 hundredths, which is 20%. Okay, so this is the number of times people reported eating fast food per week. So how many times per week did people say they ate fast food? And they did a survey. And the directions are telling us to order the responses listed in the table from least to greatest. Okay, so the smallest of these is 8%. So 8% of people said that they ate out, and it said the portion of responses from least to greatest. So this is the portion of responses. So 8% is the smallest. So only 8% of people said that they ate out 5 or more times per week at fast food. Okay, so fast food is not really healthy option, but it's a reality of life sometimes. So only 8% of people said, yeah, I eat fast food 5 or more times per week. So that's the smallest portion of responses. Okay, and then our next smallest, we have 17%, 55%, and 20%. So 17% is the next smallest. And that was already written as a percent, so we'll leave it as 17%. That here. And then next smallest is 20%. But remember, we changed it to a 20%. Initially, it was 2/10. So we'll leave it as 2/10, 0.2. And the largest, the most popular response was eating out at fast food just 1 or 2 times a week. So that was 55% of people. But remember, initially, it was not written as 55%. It was written as 11/20. Okay. Number 12, specify 3 fractions with different denominators that have a lowest common denominator of 24. Then arrange the fractions in order from least to greatest. So I want to work backwards. I'm going to use the work backwards strategy. I'm going to start off with this common denominator of 24ths. So it's 3 different fractions. And I'm going to make it easy. Oops, I don't know why I was thinking 12, so to do half. So I'm going to make it easy on myself, and I'm going to use fractions that are easy to simplify. So I'm going to make one of them 12/24 because I know that'll easily simplify to half. I'll use 6, and then I'll use 3. Okay. So specify 3 fractions with different denominators. Now, what I'll do is I see how I'm working backwards. I started off with the same denominator, but I purposefully chose fractions that I know can be simplified. So this one is also known as what? What's 12/24 simplified, everybody? 1/2. 6/24 simplified is 1/4. Okay, and then 3/24 simplified is 1/8. So then arrange these fractions in order from least to greatest. So the smallest one is 3/24, which is 1/8, and that has a denominator of 8. So I'm meeting that criteria, different denominators. The next smallest one would be 1/4, because 6/24, and the largest one would be 1/2. So I met my criteria, 3 fractions with different denominators. Here's my answer, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. They have a lowest common denominator of, actually, they're well, we'll just make that 8. They actually had a least common denominator of 8. So I didn't quite meet that. I'm going to change that problem just because we'll come back and do this one again tomorrow. But to get a least common denominator, they actually have a lowest common denominator of 8 for these. So we'll come back to do that one tomorrow. Number 13, persevere with problem solving. Order 3/8, 3/7, and 3/9 from least to greatest without writing equivalent fractions with a common denominator. Explain your strategy. So sometimes we have, if we have all of them have a common numerator, we can actually compare them without having to find a common denominator just by using our, just by rationalizing and thinking through this. So we want to put these least to greatest. So remember what we when we think about the denominators, ninths are smaller than sevenths. Okay, so and eighths. So the smallest pieces would be ninths. So 3/9, okay, because they all have the same numerator. And then the next one would be 3/8 because eighths are smaller than ninths. And then the next one would be 3/7. So we can order them from least to greatest by comparing just the numerators and knowing that ninths are smaller than eighths are smaller than sevenths. So we can look at the piece of the denominator. Okay. And then number 14 is the same thing. We have all of the same numerators. These are all 3 for our numerator. And they're asking us, what order are they put in? Are they in least to greatest, or are they in greatest to least? So when I see these, we have ninths, then tenths, then 11ths, then 12ths. If you're having 3/9 of something, that's 1/3. 3/12 of something, you're having 1/4, excuse me. So these are listed in greatest to least order. Okay, because I know that a ninth is bigger than a 12th. Okay, a ninth is bigger than a 10th when we look at our denominators and compare them. So they are ordered in greatest to least. Since the numerators are the same, we can compare the denominators. And 9 is greater than, excuse me. Okay, the pieces, ninths, I'll rate it as the word ninths, are the biggest pieces. Twelfths are the smallest pieces. And then the last one is 4/10 less than, greater than, or equal to 44%. So I want to, I have 4/10 and I want to make that into a percentage. 4/10 is the same as 40/100, which is 40%. Okay, so 40% is less than 44%. So 4/10 is less than 44%. Because written as a percent, or written as percentages, I can easily compare to see that 40% is less than 44%. Okay. So we know that 4/10 is less than 44%. And that was chapter 2, lesson 5 on pages 133 to 134.